Yo, what's good everyone? It's Zigzag here. Welcome back to another Geoguessr video. Good to have you back on the channel today. So I very recently made a video where I went over a 54 no moving, panning, or zooming streak I got on an arbitrary rural world. Now, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend going and watching that video. But today's video is a whole nother deal because I managed to get a 95 country streak without looking around on an arbitrary world. Now, this actually happened in the exact same stream as my last third place world record. But in my opinion, this one probably is the more impressive of the two streaks. I'm going to break down all the rounds for you now so that you understand. Yeah, there's a bit of controversy in this streak as well. So you'll know it when you get to it, but stick around for that. Give the video a like and let's get straight into this streak. I'll explain to you how I got 95 countries in a row and NPZ. And I think, you know, this one's a real marker in my Geoguessr career. I think this one is like kind of the first next level record I've gotten. And yeah, I'll show at the end of the video where this places me in the world. But let's get straight into the first round here. You'll see I'm starting at foot 16 here, and because this is the round I lost on, I go Croatia and then it's over in Slovenia. So now the 95 streak starts. I wish I could have kept those 17, then we could have had a really high streak, but not to worry. First one here. Looking like France. We had long outer dashes and kind of a very dry Mediterranean climate. That was going to be always France. Next one here, we literally on round number 2 have a very difficult round, which I can't even tell exactly what is going on in this round after the fact. I think it's Indonesia or Malaysia, probably Indonesia. But could it even be Thailand? I guess it was Indonesia. I go straight for it. It was definitely a difficult one there. That one at the end of the streak could have definitely ended things, but I guess early days, you can just go quickly. Next one here, we got the Tunisian follow car. So this one's quite easy. This one puts you in the north of Tunisia. So that is all I needed, literally all you need in order to get the right place. On to round number 4 of the streak, we have the thick white signpost and New Zealand bollards here. That means it's an easy one and the whole landscape feeling dry. North Island felt good, ends up being a bit further north, and I move on to the second seed. Okay, this one we have clear Mexican poles. They're octagonal, they're made of concrete. Very flat landscape for Mexican standards. Gonna put us further north, I believe. But yeah, so I guess looking at the landscape, I actually guess in the center there, ends up being further north. Okay, me looking back on it, I guess having played the round, knew better. This one, simple as seeing some Greek. Greek is one of the best languages in Geoguessr because it very rarely appears outside of Greece, so it pretty much always is a free round. Next one here, we got blue strips on the plates. It almost looked American at first, but yeah, I think the whole round just feels very Polish, and we actually do have some language up here on the billboard. Yeah, it just feels like Poland, I think. Whatever this car is seems to appear a lot over in the country of Poland. I go Warsaw, ends up being southeast. Next one here, most Turkish looking highway of all time. Turkey has really good road infrastructure, so if you're ever on like a really high quality highway in a dry area, then Turkey could be a good shout for that reason. All white road lines as well, of course. Next one here, we have the Uganda car, which you can just see behind the sub goal here. It's white and it has the 2 rear view mirrors here. We also have wooden poles and very red soil. So all of that adds up to Uganda. Even if you didn't have the car, probably could have got this one. And I just go Kampala, that's where most of the coverage is. I just skip forward because I knew it's correct, and we're on 10. Next one here, kind of difficult as well. It could have been Indonesia. I opt for Philippines. North, is it actually north? Yeah, it's fairly north. Next one here, we have the other Tunisian follow car, the other main one, the darker one. Oh, we have olive bushes everywhere, French looking road lines. That all adds up to Tunisia, so there's really no issues there. That's going to be a free one every day of the week. Sfax area normally has that kind of landscape. Next one here, this is an easy one. We got the double concrete road, white Google car peeking out here, rice fields, tons of palm trees. All adds up to Philippines. Philippines is the only country in the world where most of the roads are double concrete instead of bitumen. So yeah, that's such an easy one. And at this point, I was a little bit distracted because we had Doo-Wop in the chat, who is actually a Counter-Strike streamer, but I thought it was actually the rapper Doo-Wop Kane, and I got excited for a second. I just was kind of confused about who this was, why he had a check mark, but yeah, he's just a Counter-Strike streamer. Still, shout outs to him for following along if you're watching this video, shout outs. But yeah, anyway, next one, we had the Philippines here, send it in, it's correct. Next one, I instantly go here. I remember this one. I instantly go here. Despite the fact that this is not an easy round, there's actually nothing to make this obvious. I did think the trees look kind of north, and sorry for the poor quality. I downloaded the Twitch VOD here. But we do have white outer lines here. Just something about the pole, I think, with the light sticking out like this, just said Finland to me. I think if this was later on in the streak, I could have psyched myself out of getting that correct. But as it happened, I just got it. Okay, next one here, we have a ladder pole made of concrete, and we have dashed outer lines. Once again, this is like kind of the French convention of pole and lines, but with this landscape, these kind of African looking trees, that should just be somewhere in Senegal. And so yeah, I get into the map here. opt for near the Gambia. Clicking just on the border there, a bit too close for comfort, but okay. Next one here, we have this kind of antenna which sticks out of the side of the car. Now, when you see this one, that is going to be Puerto Rico, Northern Mariana Islands, or Guam, all belong to the US. So for a country streak, I can just click the mainland if I want to. This time I actually click on Puerto Rico because I thought it was there, and we move forward. Next one here, easy US, just a bit too dry to be Canada. Next one here, we got those Icelandic yellow bollards. Iceland also just has like the darkest soil in the whole world, so it makes life nice and easy. Whenever you get an Iceland one, it's basically a free round. Okay, next one here. Now, this is the round with the controversy. I take 4 seconds total on this round. See if you can see what's wrong. So I go in here, click Mazaru, and oh no, on the wrong side of the border. So basically, I have intended to guess Lesotho. I've ended up being, how close were we here? I believe I was 3 kilometers away from the actual location here. I don't know if there's actually a good view of that here. Let's see. If we go here, you can see where I actually was there. So I was about, you know, sub 5 kilometers. It's covered up by the sub goal. I think I was sub 5 kilometers away. Now, the thing about this is, I do believe this will be counted and will be allowed on the leaderboards because of the fact that there is actually no Generation 3 coverage on the other side of the border in South Africa. So the only coverage with this kind of camera generation would be 100 kilometers away. So it's not like I would do this on purpose when I actually thought it was the South African side or something like that. Of course, this record hasn't actually been approved yet, so it's still up to the discretion of the reviewers. And also, you guys are gonna have to trust me. I mean, I did end up 5 kilometers away, so I think that's a pretty good indication that I wasn't just hedging the two countries. But if you know quite a bit about Geoguessr, you know that, you know, South Africa and Lesotho actually don't look all too similar, especially because of the camera generations, because South Africa has very, very little Gen 3 that's actually near Lesotho that actually looks like Lesotho. So I know Geoguessr players, myself included, love coping, but this one I think you can appreciate is not actually a cope, but it was indeed my intention to click over the border in Lesotho and continue the streak. And for that reason, I said, let's just continue on. We'll count that as being correct, and the reviewers can, you know, say no if they say no. But anyway, we continue on at 19. That is the controversy of the streak. Let's continue on from there. By the way, I would still be on the record sheets. So if I'm wrong and they decide to deny that, it will still be 3rd place. But let's continue on here to the next round. We have the red car. If it's red car plus Sandy, that's just going to be Ukraine. It's easily the country where that's the most common anyway. Next one here, we have like average Patagonian landscape, except it's not Patagonia, ends up being north. But yeah, that kind of gravelly kind of road is very, very common in Argentina. Next one here, we have Generation 2 camera. So older coverage, which is more common in Canada than the US. And these trees, I think you can appreciate, are very far north looking. They kind of look like they're struggling to survive. Very sandy here as well, just kind of odd vibes. So I assume this should be quite far north, maybe up in the Northwestern Territories, which is where I eventually opt to guess. I thought it might be the road to Yellowknife, which does have a bit of Generation 2 coverage. However, it ended up being the next road over to the west, which was fine. We got 22 countries in a row by now. Canada was indeed the answer. Next one here, we have one of the rare Kenya National Park Google cars. So yeah, that's what it looks like there. Terrible quality, but yeah, that's the way it looks. Also has a snorkel. So yeah, snorkels pretty much only end up being in Kenya. Pretty useful stuff there. Next one here, back with the follow car again. This is a free Tunisia. You'll notice on every single Tunisia round on this streak, I instantly go because there's no point. And we have another one. We have the North follow car, but they're all just so completely easy. And you love to see them when you're on a country streak. But we're up to 25 now. Already a good streak. Already a streak that most people, I think, couldn't manage. But now we still have to get up to 95, guys. So let's continue on here. Easy Australia here with the eucalyptus trees everywhere. That's always a freebie. Ends up being a bit further north than I thought. Next one here, South Africa. So as I said, South Africa has the Generation 4 camera, which is not found in Lesotho, which is not found in Botswana, the other countries that would use this kind of convention for their road markings. This is also just a typical South African sign. So makes life nice and easy here. I opt for near Durban, ends up being near Johannesburg. Next one here, well, I was immediately thinking this might be South Africa again, looking back, but it actually looks like it might be somewhere in Europe here. We have yellow temporary lines, and we had a big wooden pole on the cliff there. Yeah, there we are. So with this kind of wooden pole and with the yellow temporary lines, I would think this is Greece. Yeah, Greece just tends to use like these really tall poles, which don't tend to appear really elsewhere in Europe, except rarely in Spain. But that would be kind of a crazy round. Next one here, just the red soil and African trees that you see in Senegal. Man, I opened the map so quickly, I'm struggling to keep up and pause in time. Next one here, we have double white lines plus these chevrons. Should just be somewhere in Malaysia. That's the typical combination that you get there. And yeah, like Indonesia doesn't really use double white lines. Neither do like Thailand or Cambodia. Okay, next one here. This one immediately looks to me like it is Southeast Asia. I think it might be Indonesia, actually. We got a black Google car here. So black Google car would make Philippines impossible. So yeah, should just be Indo here. That would make quite a bit of sense to me. Ends up being Kalimantan. Nice guess. Next one here, German bollards. So I mean, there are other countries that look like this, but with the German bollards, we should be there. You could also see these in, for example, Luxembourg, but Luxembourg would not have red brick architecture. So, and same thing for Hungary. So yeah, that's what makes Germany a pretty sure send here. It is a lot of birch trees. It was slightly concerning, but I opt for Hanover and it ends up being nearby there. Double yellow lines this time just leans you US. We had lots of eastern white pines, so the New England area makes sense. It did kind of look like Canada, but double yellow lines are only found in certain places in Canada and even still kind of rarely. Moving on. Next one here, just an easy Argentina. Black Google car, poplar trees, fairly barren landscape, wooden pole. It all adds up to New Ken or somewhere nearby, and it was New Ken province. Next one here, double yellows in double whites in Australia. Yeah, it was an easy seed. Nothing to break sweat there. Next one here, we have American style bollards on the right of the screen here, just next to the mini map, and then, you know, just an American style highway here, kind of a reddish road. So where was this actually? I feel like this was kind of surprising. What do I opt for here? I think I guess maybe a bit too far south here. What is it? It's going to be quite far north, I think. What is snowing, actually? Okay, go Montana. No, I'm going to go too far north. Okay, ends up being in North Dakota. Yeah, Fargo there. Okay, next one here. This is one of the most impressive rounds of the early part of the streak because this one, to most people, just looks like Botswana. We have those African trees. We have that kind of Southern African coverage with the sun to the north, but this is actually South Africa. So I immediately recognize that this looks a bit off for Botswana. I guess I've just played enough Botswana map to realize when something feels a bit off, because obviously Botswana's coverage is fairly limited. I just opted for South Africa here after looking at it for a little bit longer, as you can see, just made sure, and it is just over the border from Gaborone there, but a good round. Okay, next one here. Now we're actually in South Africa. We have a red road. So around Polokwane, you have lots of red roads, and around Alpington as well, but this one with these kind of lower bushes looks quite Polokwane, and it ends up being a bit further east. Next one here, Faroe Islands. If you know, you know. It's just a very easy place to get once you've played as much as I have. Next one here, we have round concrete poles. We have the crap cam coverage. We have a huge lake. Yeah, it just doesn't quite feel Indian with these round poles. So with this coverage and with this pole top, like especially this one here, we have to be in Cambodia. Okay, at this point, we're running on 41 in a row. That was a 22.7. Let's see what we get next here. So immediate, like, Pacific Northwest vibes, I think, from what I remember. Yeah, we have, like, quite a lot of, like, it's kind of hard to see on here, but the pines in the background definitely look PNW. So the question is it BC or is it over the US side? I think this, like, plaque on the pole, I just didn't recognize for Canada at all, so I'm pretty sure I opt for America here. Architecture also just doesn't quite feel Canadian, and I opt for the Seattle area, but it actually does kind of surprise me where this one ends up being. So if you can predict it, see if you can. But I go Seattle, and it actually ends up being Spokane. So yeah, kind of interesting. That's why it felt a little bit off. That's why I had to take a bit to consider it. But I do wonder if that white tag on the pole could be a Spokane thing, and it may well be. Also, let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Got in trouble in the past. But anyway, next one here, definitely looking US. Just feels much too warm to be Canada. I mean, it takes a while to build those vibes in Geo, but once you have them, like, you can most of the time just tell if the climate's a bit wrong. Anyway, that one was a good guess. It ends up being Oklahoma, and we're in for the next round with the Kyrgyzstan car. Kyrgyzstan, obviously a nice and easy one to get if you have the Google car. Next one here, this is Botswana, except this time we have these kind of autumn colors, like orangish leaves. Very, very common on the Botswana side of the border. Next one here, actually landscape-wise, does not look like Thailand, but this roof particularly, with like the kind of Buddhist shrine out the front, this little like structure here, and this particular pointy roof, it definitely felt Thai. And it could have been Cambodian, but Cambodia does not have the updated Generation 4 camera. So yeah, just Thailand was the play here. Lots of banana plants, lots of like palms in the background. Definitely looks kind of like Philippines, like Indonesia, like those typical rice fields there. But yeah, we opt for near Bangkok. It ends up being near Bangkok. Excellent guess, 21,000 points, and we move forward. 50 country streak was already getting close to third place. So already the pressure starting to mount here. This one could actually have been Canada, or it could have been somewhat difficult were it not for the double yellow lines. But the double yellow lines solidly put me on the US side of the border. So let's see where I opt for here. I actually don't remember where I guessed, but my guess after the fact is probably just somewhere Appalachians like Tennessee, Kentucky, and it ends up being, well, I guess the same place, but it ends up being Wisconsin. Okay, interesting, like driftless area. Next one here, huge pine tree here. This letterbox with the smaller kind of like the kind of traditional stereotypical letterbox is much more common in the US than Canada. I think the vibes here are also US, but maybe Great Plains. Where did I actually opt for here? I think it might be Dakotas. I go Ohio, and yeah, it's actually Wisconsin again. Okay, so halfway between my two last guesses. Here we have massive eucalyptus trees, ferns, everything adds up for southwestern Western Australia. Moving on, we have a very Turkish looking road here. It's very pale. Like the Balkans and Turkey have very pale roads, but then the Turkish one's a little bit more salt and pepper, where there is this kind of like black gravel inside the road as well. This is just the most typical Turkish landscape ever. I opt for middle, and it ends up being a bit further west. Next one here, black, backs of the signs, we have palm trees, and we also have what I can see on the left-hand side of the screen being Portuguese language, so there is really no question about Brazil here. I guess I'm just looking a little bit longer to work out which region I want to actually click, because obviously I'm trying to learn while I do these attempts as well. And to be fair, it is a fairly difficult round. It's very easy to get Brazil, very difficult to work out where in Brazil this would be. Although I feel like this is kind of northern, but I end up going for Suiaba here, and it was actually further south. Okay, never mind. Guess it's harder to see on this quality. But okay, next up we have an actual legitimate difficult round. We're on 52 in a row now, so we're just shy of the record sheets. Obviously, this continues for quite a while longer, but we have the blue Google car here, so likely to be somewhere in Europe with the back of the car, and we have spring coverage. It's just the vibes here. It's just the vibes, and also the fact that it's spring coverage that helps me to go to the right country. This one definitely took a little bit of sitting and thinking, but, or did it? I can't remember how quickly I guess here, but I definitely immediately got a vibe for Croatia. There are certain countries around Europe with a lot of spring coverage. I would point to Lithuania being one with a ton. Croatia has a ton, and then you see it sporadically throughout different countries as well. For example, Poland has quite a bit as well, I would say. Many others do. But anyway, Croatia, suffice to say, has quite a bit, and I thought the trees just kind of looked Croatian, and it was Croatia. That was a really good one. I think a get that a lot of people would struggle with. Next one here, easy Greenland, right? It just looks like Greenland. There's nowhere else in the world that looks like this that has street view coverage, especially with those houses in the background. That being said, I take a little bit of time because we are on 53 here, and because I've been practicing Greenland as well. And I opt for this west coast part here. I thought the coverage kind of looks like that. Ends up being nearby. Good guess. Next one here. Okay, another one. Baltic roulette. Some countries that are very difficult for beginners to get are very easy for pros to get. However, there are also those regions which remain extremely difficult for pros, and people never really figure out good ways to get them correct. And one such an example is the Baltics. Baltics are just extremely difficult to tell apart. You basically have to rely on the coverage metas and slight pole metas, slight architectural differences, slight differences in signage. For example, the amount of windows on the bus in the bus stop actually does help in the Baltics, because I think it is that there are 4 windows in Lithuania and Estonia and 5 in Latvia. I don't exactly use that one too often, but this one here was winter coverage. It reminded me, particularly the poll reminded me of either Estonia or Lithuania, and then the question was kind of narrowing it down. I think I actually do opt for Estonia here, which is a country that does have quite a lot of winter coverage, probably more than the other 2 Baltics, but the other 2 do have it, so it really was a bit of a 33 here, which is always nice to be able to overcome. Anyway, after some consideration, I opt for Tallinn, and it is outside of Tallinn, and we move on to an easy Kenya with another different national park car. This time ends up being southeast. Now we have an easy UAE. There tends to be a lot of this like wide open desert landscape in the UAE, so it does become very easy once you recognize it. I would say before you recognize it, it can look a lot like Peru or Chile, but yeah, once you get a feel for it, you don't see any mountains there either in that kind of particular area, so yeah, it's a good one. Next one here, French signage. It could have been a difficult round were it not for the fact that we did have this kind of French signage with the yellow road number on top, but obviously we're in the Alps somewhere, and with the French signs, we will click on the French side. There we go, into the Alps we click. And for some reason, I was trying to actually find the towns here. Anyway, eventually I get tired of it. I click and we move on to an easy South Africa here. South African road lines, generation 4, freebie. Next one here. Oh my gosh, I opened the map so quickly, guys. It's actually infuriating. Anyhow, next one here, we do have the snorkel on the car. We also have red soil and some very African looking vegetation here, so it all adds up to Kenya, especially with the snorkel. That's only really found there. I opt for north of Nairobi. I think it's actually south maybe. Okay, it is actually just nearby there. Next one here, easiest Lesotho of all time. This time I actually will click inside the country. and it ends up being correct, of course. Lesotho just has the most unique looking hills. Okay, we're on 61, which actually is enough for third place in this category, but of course we're going to push higher. We now have the front of the Google car here, and white road lines, and a very unique looking round. I think this one's definitely one that requires a bit more experience, but it is just Hong Kong. Hong Kong has actually quite a lot of rural roads covered, especially ones that look like this. And actually, ones that look like this are really common as well. And yeah, just tropical vibes, kind of interesting rock wall, ends up being an easy Hong Kong. I go straight in. You could think I would take more consideration at 61 countries, but even though that is a fairly difficult round, once you figure it out, it's actually not that hard because like nothing else really makes sense, if that makes sense. So yeah, we're on 62 countries in a row now. Moving forward, we have a Nigeria. We have the antenna sticking out here. We're driving right-hand side of the road. And the thing about this one that makes it not possible to be Senegal is that it's just a bit too green. We just have a bit too much of like these kind of like, you know, palmish looking trees here, a bit too many rocks lying around the place. Even though the soil color looks Senegalese, nothing else really does. And then also Kenya doesn't really make sense, so I just opt for Nigeria. Okay, there we go. I send it in. It ends up being a pretty close guess there. We head forward to the next one here. Easy Australia. We have eucalyptus trees everywhere, driving left-hand side of the road, white road lines, wooden fence. Wooden fences is surprisingly useful. Not something I've talked about on the channel too much, but they definitely show up in some countries more than others. New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, Brazil. They love their wooden fences for fencing off places. I guess it's, you know, they're countries with a lot of timber available, so it makes sense. Next one here, we got the blue antenna, like the blue car with the antenna. This one's actually fairly difficult looking back on it. I'm pretty sure this ends up being Bulgaria, but there's nothing easy about this one, to be honest with you. It just kind of feels a bit weird. The road quality is also quite poor. And I mean, Bulgaria is one of those countries where it's either good or bad type of thing. And this one tends to be like what the bad roads look like. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the Balkan roads being very pale is another meta. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I ended up going Bulgaria here. Definitely not a pleasant one, but I think that's what I opt for. And so yeah, some consideration later, we send it in, ends up being right on the Turkish border, but we are correct. Next one here, the white road lines, Sarawak vibes. I mean, it's just elementary stuff, guys. I don't know, like you just know exactly how it looks once you've played enough games, but white road lines definitely help distinguish it from Indonesia, where that would be pretty rare. Next one here, Nordic vibes, Generation 2 coverage, random rock on the side of the road here, very much a Nordic thing. Scots pines, birches, it all adds up. For Nordics, the question is Sweden or Finland. Probably feels a bit too flat for Norway. I don't know, it's just one of those things, like the slight hilliness of it reminds me more of Finland. The reddish soil reminds me more of Sweden, but the Generation 2 reminds me more of Finland. There's definitely more of that than in Sweden. And ultimately, just a vibe thing, I go for Finland here. It just seems more likely. It's one of these ones where, yeah, I could take a long time to consider it, think about what's actually the most likely, but the immediate vibes are just Finland. I opt for it, and it's correct. Yeah, so there you go. No point in wasting too much time on a round like that. Here we have another free Tunisia, which is always a nice sight for sore eyes. Ends up being just south of Sfax. Next one here, again, that kind of really good quality open highway that you get with double lanes on each side in Turkey. And we have snow poles as well here. Kind of hard to make out in this quality, but yeah, the snow poles are also really common just around all of Turkey, even though I guess it doesn't snow that much in a place like that, but maybe it's quite elevated. Maybe it does. Anyway, next one here. Big old open highway. This one actually made me consider for quite a while because we have yellow outer lines here. We also have yellow inner lines, which is really confusing. And then it is extremely dry, but it also just kind of looks like the poles are very generic. The trees look pretty generic dry trees. My two big considerations here with the yellow outer lines was just Israel and the UAE. And I thought, yeah, the UAE is definitely more likely here, but it actually took me a little bit to decide. I ended up looking for about a minute here and opt for the UAE. It ends up being correct. Not an easy round there by any circumstance or by any means. Not too shabby of a guess. Next one here, Turkish bollards. Bollards solve about like 10% of all Geoguessr rounds. So, you know, if you get them, you get them. If you don't, you don't, but it's always nice to have. Okay, moving on here. Country number 73, we have a Japan. Clearly low camera here, clearly Japanese cars. Not much else to be said here. Just a nice and easy one. and I refresh the page. You know, Geoguessr, you have to refresh sometimes in order for it to run quickly. If you notice that things are a bit choppy, then refreshing the page often fixes that problem. Anyway, I go in here. Should be further south. Okay, never mind. Let's see what we get. Next one here. Okay, this one I remember considering for a long time. So we're on country number 75 here, and we get what's clearly a North America, so it's a Canada-US toss-up here. We have these yellow lines, we have some wildflowers, we have what I thought might be the Canadian shield here, because we have just like this big rock cliff clearly carved out for the road to go here. Yeah, that's kind of what's going on here. Some birches, it would seem, or at least some white trees of some kind. And that is kind of it. Generation 3 camera, guardrail in the distance, kind of hard to make out what exactly is going on. And that's all we have to work with. So my initial vibe was that this is maybe an America that looks like Canada. Because yes, we have this thing that looks more Canadian, the shield thing. We also have, though, these like tar seals all over the road. Canadian roads can be very cracked, but they're much less likely to have the tar seals on it. At least that's like a really old school meta that people used to use back in the day, and I still use when I have nothing else to go off of, even to this day. And yeah, at the end of the day, I just couldn't quite place the guardrail in Canada. I was thinking that probably isn't what's going on. The mountains also, I was just like, what are these? Are they like Quebec hills? Are they Ontario hills? Hill probably feels too big for Ontario, even though the round probably looks most like Ontario. So then I was pretty much left to thinking this would be Quebec. And I don't know, the road quality, again, the tar ceiling didn't really feel too Quebec to me. So at the end of the day, I do opt for US, and let's see where I actually was, because that was truly, I just skipped through like 2 minutes, at least 2 or 3 minutes of consideration. And here I go. I have my marker, I think, in New York State here. Yeah, I opt for northern New York State, and it ends up being in just over the border in Pennsylvania. I was so happy about this one, guys. That's a big get. It was definitely Canada latitude. It could have been Canada. And we get rewarded with the next one being an easy Japan here. Never going to send anywhere else. It just looks like Japan. We have the low camera, so that's an easy one. The next one here, we have a fairly difficult round here. So we have the white Google car, which is really common around the world. Very common in Philippines, for example, but these road lines look Latin American, so was considering probably Colombia or Brazil the most here. Now, the road felt very Colombian. I don't know, just like this kind of very good quality, and it kind of feels very smooth like Colombian roads often do. But I did notice that the soil off to the left here is quite red, and the pole seemed to fit better for Brazil. And also, particularly this kind of long grass on the side of the road, that reminded me much more of Brazil as well. So basically, we had like a lot of small factors that contributed to my Brazil thought. Meanwhile, the white car and the road kind of looked more Colombian. So that was kind of the 50-50 I was in at this point. I was definitely preferring Brazil most of the time, but just trying to confirm that this wouldn't be in Colombia. And so as I've hinted at, I end up opting for Brazil. I go Goiás here, and it ends up being out west, which kind of explains why it looked a bit strange. And the next one here, just another one where you just insta-send. Like, Andorra is stuck in Generation 3, and you get a lot of this kind of, you know, this kind of autumn coverage where I'm not really sure what kind of trees they are that like have the autumn leaves mixed in with the pines, but it's just so distinctive. And yeah, I'm never not going to go Andorra on that round. Next one here, we have no blue strip. So immediate thought is going to be Russia here without the blue strip. I guess Ukraine was also possible, but then I was a bit worried here because this is kind of a 50-50, but I look down and we have the blurred antenna. Blurred antenna shows up around Europe, but it's never in Ukraine. So at that point, without the blue strip, I was pretty confident that this was too open landscape to be anywhere else that made sense apart from Russia. I guess the only other possibility would be an extremely baity Poland or something, but yeah, with the plate, just had to be Russia. Ends up being a pretty poor guess, but we get the right country, and we move on to country number 80 here. I instantly send in. Wow, I went so quickly there. Realistically, it did look like Colombia, but I just go straight for it. Okay, next one here. We got a mosque. We got a very dry landscape. Feels like southeastern Turkey to me here. Where is it actually? Maybe it's just central as well, but yeah, everything looks Turkish here. Take a moment to confirm. Guessing southern, but yeah, it was southeastern there. Next one here, we got the glitch of the red car. So it's like, that's not actually the back of the car, that's the front of the car, or that is like a glitch of the back of the car at the front. The road's kind of red. It's very kind of leafy and warm looking, which you don't really get so much in Russia, but ultimately the red car seals the deal. This has to be Ukraine, so I go straight in, and it ends up being correct. Next one here, country 83, we have another easy South Africa. again, like just dry landscape with the Gen 4 antenna, just so common there. Next one here, very thick concrete pole here. I remember considering this one for a while. These black water tanks are common in some Latin American countries and not others. For example, Mexico has a lot of them, so does Argentina, and then some countries have blue ones as well. So I'm pretty sure, for example, Ecuador sometimes has blue ones, sometimes black ones. Maybe there are some countries that are mixed, but I just saw this kind of willow looking tree, kind of felt a bit Mexican. A few parts of this round kind of felt a bit Mexican. The problem is that the poles are round, not octagonal. At the end of the day, Argentina's just easily most likely on a round that looks like this, and I think I do opt for the Mendoza area or nearby. I go for that, so then we get another 20,000 pointer, and we're up to country number 85 here. So this one does bear some similarity to the round in the arbitrary real world attempt where I got 54, and it looked like a mix between India, Cambodia, and Nigeria, but this one, the trees just feel much more Indian, so I'm pretty sure I'll go quickly here. It just doesn't quite make enough sense for the other countries that it could be, and it ends up being correct. Okay, next one here, I mean, we have a bit of Baltic roulette. Once again, not a country you want to see coming up at 85. But on this occasion, the vibes are definitely more, I would say, towards Lithuania. I think this was Lithuania at least. So the road is a bit kind of brown, which I found is quite common in Lithuania and Latvia. And then Latvia does tend to have more wooden poles than the other two. So this one is like a concrete pole. I think for that reason, I probably opt for Latvia here. I mean, Lithuania based on the road quality. So I put my marker down. I do take significant time there, but in the end, I do opt for Lithuania. Ends up being a good guess. Again, another round that easily could have gone wrong. Next one here is a super easy Cambodia though. Whatever, like, you just learn subtle things when you play so much Geoguessr. One of them is that this car brand, I do not know what it is. It kind of looks like a Toyota. I don't know. Whatever model this car is widely sold in Cambodia. You see them all the time there. I feel like this car brand, whatever it is, also might be quite common in Nigeria as well. It just kind of reminds me of there too. But yeah, like you just wouldn't really see that in India. I feel it's interesting. I feel like there even in Thailand there are particular ones that are common, you know, around the world, obviously. But yeah, this one is one that I associate with Cambodia. Then we have tons of motorbikes, and we have houses and palms and everything that feel correct. So I'm pretty sure I just go straight for it here. Yeah, it's really hard to describe why that is, but that was an easy Cambodia. So yeah, next one here, Southern Pines here. So should actually just be US rather than anywhere else. I go straight for Georgia, ends up being North Carolina, but that's still a good guess. Next one here, potentially a difficult round because there are really no clues here. We don't have any traffic lights, traffic posts, cars, what have you, no car meta, anything like that. What we do have though is an abundance of small eucalyptus trees here, which are really common in Portugal and Spain. I would say if you're between the two, they are more common in Portugal, but they're definitely very common in both. One thing I did notice here is these big ditches on the side of the road here that you can see in the bottom right-hand side of the screen here. Those ones, just on a pure vibe level, kind of felt more Portuguese to me. I feel like you might get more rainfall that side. I don't know. The curves just kind of felt Portuguese, and especially compared to Spanish. And so if you're in Europe, as we clearly are by the road quality and by the white line on the outside, just kind of felt like Europe, then those would be the only two options with these eucalyptus trees, apart from maybe like a rare Italian island or Greek island. But yeah, I was very confident, very bullish on these two, and especially Portugal. So I think even though I'm on 88 streak, I do go pretty quickly here because I just couldn't shake the feeling that this was much more likely to be Portugal than Spain. So yeah, I think I'm going to go in now. Yeah, it didn't take me long there. Definitely could have been one I spent 10 minutes on, but I decided not to, decided to go straight for it. Next one here looks like we have a Brazilian pole, like palms in the background, rickety wooden fence, white car. It all adds up for Brazil here. And this time we do have a blue water tank on the top of the roof here, which I think is more probably the Brazilian style. Ends up being a good guess up in the north there. Next one here, black car. It's really hard to see on the Twitch VOD here, but we do actually have a property marker with a thick white post and a blue property marker on it. So these ones are common all throughout the Midwest and Southern Canada. So the Midwest of US and Southern Canada. But I thought with the black car and this particular property marker, which is the Eastern Ontario style. Well, yeah, I knew it was Eastern Ontario because Fungus Fowl told me about these ones. And then, yeah, we have a red barn as well. Definitely feels quite northern. Trees feel northern. But yeah, I just kind of knew with the black car and this that we should actually be there. And as soon as I realized, we go straight for it because I realized this one is probably not found in the US at all. And yeah, there you can see me circling it. Pretty excited that I see something that could show up the country here. I go straight for it, and we are very close indeed, although it was right on the US border there. And so we move on to country number 92. This one we just have like German bus stops. We have German like looking roofs, red mixed with black, mixed with like all kinds of things. Also the Germany just has like very default European plates, so just a plain blue strip, doesn't look like anything else. Bright bike lanes as well. It all made sense for Germany. It was a fairly easy round. Next one here, another fairly easy one. Banana plants everywhere, very dark soil. Rwanda with the hilly landscape just makes an awful lot of sense there. Next one here, easier South Korea of my life. Just beautiful location, exactly how South Korea looks. And then we move on to country 95, which is New Zealand. New Zealand bollards everywhere. So now we move on to this one, which immediately I was like, oh no, this is a bit difficult. So looking at the round, there's a few things. So I think earlier in this streak, I believe it was this streak that I mentioned, that kind of Germany often has these cutout parts of the road where they redo the pavement, like in kind of rectangular strips. So immediately I was drawn towards Germany. I was kind of between Germany and Austria here. It was 2023 copyright, so that could definitely not rule out anything. Both countries possible. Looking over at the plates, it looked like some of them didn't even have blue strips, but the ones that didn't seem to have that like kind of little red emblem that you get in Austria. So yeah, I was just kind of looking at the pavement here. I did actually take quite a while looking at the pavement, looking at the fence, looking at the kind of the architecture here. I was a bit confused about this house in particular. But this one did kind of feel like southern Germany, Alps kind of vibe to me, especially with the white walls. Like really, white walls are really common in Germany and Austria. There was a little bit of question in my mind about this one. Let's skip forward to see. So as I've hinted, I thought Germany is the most likely. I send it in, and it was actually northern Spain, and I was like, what? Yeah, I was not even considering in the slightest Spain. Of course, when you look back at it, that's clearly Basque architecture, but I just did not pick up on that vibe at all at the time. And to be honest, if you don't pick up the vibe here, there's no like obvious thing where it's like, oh, I should never have guessed Germany. I mean, the big thing is the houses, of course, which definitely look more Basque than German in hindsight, but at the same time, I think you can see what I mean. This kind of like black strip here, it does kind of feel like Alps, kind of Austrian, German kind of vibe. If you guys like think there's anything in particular, I mean, there's a lot of things which I realized, okay, in hindsight, it makes sense. But I did actually go down here and check out some of the cars, I think, and you can see there is a German car here, VW, then we have like, I think it's a Mercedes truck here. So I could see 2 German cars in view. I think that's actually Mercedes here as well. So I could see 3 German cars in view. Yeah, this is a Mercedes, right? Yeah, it is. So I could see 3 German cars in view, and I guess that also factored in to what exactly went down here. But okay, 95 countries in a row. Now let me show you where that actually places us on the leaderboards. And so here we are, NMPZ records. Here we are on Arbitrary World, Solo Arbitrary World. 126 is first by Kirania, insane record. And then we actually pull second place with the 95, destroying third place, which is 58. So it's kind of an open category for a while there. And yeah, that's how it went down. I think this is quite possibly my best ever streak. I think it is my best ever streak, in all honesty. 95, it's the type of consistency that I really could not muster in previous years. But there we go. That is it for the video. I hope you guys really enjoyed this one. Let me know if you want me to let me know if you'd like to see some more world record attempts, because I think that would be great fun to get a first place one. I have my eyes on AI generated world because I do believe 59 is beatable by Shimmy, but it's going to take a hell of a grind. So let me know if you're interested in that. But I would say, guys, thank you very much for watching the video all the way to the end. I will see you guys in one very soon. Thanks for watching to the end, and goodbye.